the interview that is breaking the internet. Last night, the Duggar family of 19 kids and counting fame spoke out for the first time about their oldest son, Josh, and his molestation of several underage girls, including 4 of his younger sisters.
For us, of course, this is public shame that our son did this back 12, 13 years ago. This was not rape or anything like that. This was like touching somebody over their clothes. There were a couple incidents where he touched them under their clothes, but it was like a few seconds.
It was more of his heart, his intent. He knew that it was wrong, but in theirs, they weren't even aware. It was like, you know, it wasn't to them. They didn't probably even understand that it was an improper touch.
What Josh did was inexcusable, but it was not unforgivable.
And then there is this question. Why would the Duggars launch a reality TV show in 2008 preaching the importance of family values with such a dark family secret?
We had nothing to hide. We had taken care of all that years before. And when they asked us to do the reality TV show, all this had been taken care of 5 years before. And we had a clean bill of health from the state. We had said you'd gone through counseling, you had told the police.
I don't know that we lived in fear because we'd all resolved it. It had been forgiven. We moved on with life.
Joining the panel now is host of Person, Place, Thing and former New York Times ethicist Randy Cohen. Randy, what do you make of the Duggars' explanation?
Well, it's hard to be amusing about child abuse.
No, absolutely.
So, you know, I feel slightly constrained, but I do have a favorite part, which is when Josh Duggar's defense was, well, you know, they were asleep.
Right. Well, they actually repeated that. The parents repeated that several times. It was over the clothes. It was just for a few seconds.
If I understand that they were asleep defense, that means
what happens when you're asleep?
You can abuse people when they're asleep. Right. That's okay.
Right.
You could, if you give them some sort of, I don't know, date rape drug, that would be okay.
Right. And I just wonder,
that a curious defense.
When you heard that, Christina, you know, I mean, did it actually exacerbate the case to have his parents out there saying, but it, you know, kind of what it wasn't that big of a deal, effectively.
Yeah, she wasn't really conscious of that moment, so it's fine.
And it was just for a few seconds over the clothes.
And, I mean,
sometimes.
What I think is funny is, like, until this thing happened, like, I had no idea this was happening when that this Christian purity cult had their reality TV show. Like, I didn't know when it was like 17 and counting and 18 and counting and 30 and counting.
Well, 4 million people in the Duggars' defense knew that.
But now I think it actually would be really interesting because I think that there's an enormous, I mean, we sort of started discussing this, enormous deep misogyny in the culture that this reality show is portraying. And one of the things that we don't talk about enough is that sexual abuse mostly happens in families. It's not stranger danger, it's in families. So talking about and watching and thinking about how this family is coping with this is going to be a really interesting moment to maybe, I mean, I want to watch now to kind of go, what's the story?
Right, and the show has been taken off the air, but you can watch reruns.
And you want to look back and say what happened and what's, you know,
and they are being, that is being litigated in the court of public opinion, Jonathan, especially the Duggars' attitude towards those in the LGBT community and the things they have said about them, and the idea that, you know, and Megyn Kelly asked them, how can you call other people sinners when you have sinners in your own family? And they seem to find a difference between certain forms of sin, I guess.
Of course they do, because that's what folks on the far religious right do. It's that, you know, you sinners over there, you're horrible people, but if we get caught doing something that is, well, illegal and immoral, well, you know, it's not a big deal. I mean, what was so offensive about the clips that you showed was this attitude of, you know, not a big deal, nothing to see here. I mean, that was just taken care of 5 years ago. We got a clean bill of health. No, I'm sorry, but the reason why their show is off the air and why we're talking about them and they have to sit with Megyn Kelly for, you know, this hour-long confessional is because they don't have a clean bill of health. What they've done, and this what did you call it, the Christian purity cult? I mean, this is what happens when you try to make yourself holier than thou, almost literally better than everyone else.
Yeah. When you describe girls who have been sexually active as like a bowl full of spit or a bicycle that's been ridden and ruined by other people, I mean, that's the logic those girls are growing up in after they've been sexually abused.
Well, there's really ethically back to one of the things you excel at. No, but you know, they said at one point, as parents, you're not mandatory reporters, because they were asked by Megyn Kelly. This went on for 3 years. years before you dealt with it out of house and talked to.
Wait, to be fair, they did talk to a state trooper who was a pal at the used car lot.
But that was three years
Several
after
years
they
later,
first
and he
found out
did
about this.
Give the young man a stern talking to.
Well, right.
Let's
I
be
mean,
fair about it.
no. Okay, so these are all questions. I mean, did they do?
When you're as a legal matter? I'm not a lawyer, but
Right,
as a legal matter, parents are not mandatory reporters.
Of course they're not. But as an ethical
matter, if you think someone is going to do imminent serious harm to another person, you have an absolute obligation to act. It doesn't have to be calling the police, but you must act.
Well, and at certain points,
And
Randy,
I
they
don't
say.
think they call what they did acting.
Well, but they say in the
another
interview they took precautions to make sure he didn't have access to the girls' bedrooms. Presumably that involves some kind of door lock. And I'm just thinking, if you have to install some kind of precautionary,
Right, I think it means more than
a
that.
lock or whatever, so that your son does not molest your daughters, something's wrong in the house, and you need to seek outside help.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I should also say, if you can't enjoy the downfall of a hypocrite,
Right.
I don't want to go have drinks with you. I mean, it's so American. It's like Elmer Gantry, right? In our fiction for years and years and years. Explain to the young people who Tammy Faye Baker was.
Right. Well, and then
There you go.
This is a regular part of American life.
there is also the
Mascara wars of the 70s.
there is the victim question too. I mean, there is the question about, two of the sisters took to the airwaves yesterday and defended their brother and said it wasn't really anything as serious as the media's cracked it up to be. The father and mother both blamed generally the media for blowing this out of proportion and said that there are people who are purposely trying to bring things out and twist them to hurt and slander. I just want to note that the media did not name any of the victims here. In Touch leaked this, and the rest of the media has actually been, I think, very careful to not name names here or even ages until this particular moment.
Because they care, because children are involved, minors are involved, or at least people who were minors at the time. Great care and caution over these people whose own parents, I don't know what they did to try to protect the precautions that they took to keep Josh from doing
The very,
awful
very
things
wrong
to them.
thing.
And there's this weird dynamic of the fact that this is a family that decided to put their family after this kind of trauma and then brand their family and then have their children
That
out of the
I
world.
think, to
so
Randy's
I'm really
point.
curious about 20 years from now, what are these girls, how do you sort of manage what you've been through and then have to kind of protect your family's brand name and your family's economics, survival on kind of silencing the violence done to you? Like, that's the whole scary dynamic that is going to play out in that family for a long time after we stop caring.